Live from Lagos, this is Lunchtime Politics. I'm Jeffrey Uzama, bringing you up to speed with the big happenings in politics and in the polity. Let's begin with the headlines. President Bola Tinubu assures that his economic policies are well thought out, says country has met 2025 revenue target and is not borrowing. I speak with an economist to assess the claim. All gloves off. People's Democratic Party dares and warns distractors within and outside the party to back off, insisting enough is enough, affirms date of Ibadan National Convention. Thanks again for joining us on the program, and it's all about politics and the economy. That's what we'll be talking about today on the program. Well, let's begin with politics, where the People's Democratic Party has really been talking tough, saying that its national convention that has been slated for Ibadan in November stands sacrosanct. And some of the remarks that were made at the meeting yesterday was to the effect that whoever is saying what, enough is enough as far as they are concerned, they are going ahead with their convention, and anybody who dares to try to put maybe a will in the, to try to distract them in that sense, enough is enough. They will no longer be accepting such remarks or direction by those people in their party. I'm not sure who they are talking about, but take a listen to the national chairman as well as the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum and one of the governors of the states.
While the faction that broke out has not garnered much traction, we know that politics is dynamic, and the ruling class may seek to capitalize on or even sponsor such distractions to weaken the PDP. Many of these destructive voices have come from individuals who have benefited immensely from the party. As you know, the 2025 National Convention is scheduled to hold in Ibadan, and that is sacrosanct. I want to make it very clear. We will no longer allow or tolerate anybody to take us for granted. It has to stop. Enough is enough. We are not going to tolerate any longer. But certainly time has come when we must flex our muscles. We are not cowards and we are not afraid of anybody. We know and we're quite aware that a lot of expectation is expected of us and in this convention. And we are bringing into bear our wealth of experience.
Well, we are ready to flex our muscle, according to the PDP Governors Forum Chairman, Bala Mohammed. But let's also tell you what's playing out in other parts of the country, within the sub-nationals, where some members of the All Progressives Congress in Abia State, under the auspices of the Abia Best Interest Association, have dragged the governor of the state, Mr. Alex Oti, to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the ICPC and other related offences commission over alleged fraud. Addressing journalists in Abuja, convener of the group, Barrister Eze Chikenayo, asked the anti-graft agency to investigate the claims by the governor to have spent over 54 billion naira for the renovation of smart schools in the state.
We regret to inform you that it's now almost 1 month after we raised those concerns about the report in the Abia State Budget Performance Report published by Mr. Alex Oti himself. We raised the concerns about 51 smart schools built with 54 billion naira across the 17 local governments of Abia State that are missing, nowhere to be found. And we just made a request. Mr. Governor, just do us a favor. Give us a list of these schools. Since Mr. Alex Oti have refused, after a whole 1 month of our press conference, and resorted to diversionary tactics, we have taken this matter. If you look at this, this is Transparency International. This is the World Bank. This is the EFCC. We have taken this to Ministry of Finance. We have taken this to all international bodies, all with the exception of none. We have asked UNESCO to stop dealing with Abia State henceforth until Mr. Alessoti gives account and shows us the location, the contractors, the names, the pictures of the 51 public schools, smart schools, that he has built with 54 billion, for which Abia taxpayers' money running into those billions have been taken away already.
And from there, let's get to the presidency, where the president has been speaking to with some politicians, but he's been using the opportunity to talk about some of his successes in terms of economic management. He said no more borrowing locally from local banks. As a matter of fact, the government has met its 2025 revenue target. Let's take a listen to him.
Many of you had to suffer the initial abuse and the fear. Where are we going? We know the direction that we should go. We are going up. No, those who may not know will not know. Today I'm standing before you, I can brag that Nigeria is not borrowing a dime from local bank. The revenue, we have met our target of revenue for the whole year. We met it in August. I've reviewed this morning. If non-oil revenue is going well, then we have no fear of whatever Trump is doing on the other side. And I've just signed off on a huge mechanization, program that every region we have.
Okay, the president, he said, look, he can brag now, and he talked about a couple of things. Let's bring in our guest, the chief economist at SPM Professionals, Paul Alaje, joins us virtually. Ms. Alaje, thank you so much. Dr. Paul Alaje, I should say. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so very much for having me. Beautiful afternoon to you.
So let's begin to interrogate some of the things the president has spoken about. I know that the revenue collected so far is in the region of about 20 trillion. Also, I think non-oil came to about 15. Our projected revenue was about 36 trillion, and our total budget side about 55 trillion naira. And then our deficit stood about 13 trillion. So the president has said, well, from his economic policy in terms of optimization, because he said the non-oil tax revenue from taxes have actually contributed more in terms of what it has got, where the government has gotten in terms of revenue size so far. What do you make of the president's statement and claim? True, false, or incomplete story? What exactly?
We need to say we cannot verify what the president has said. He's the first official, and I think the highest official in government today. To have made such statements means he might have numbers that we don't have. And as watchers of the economy, it would be dangerous to say he has said the truth or he has not said the truth. What we need to do is to perhaps wait when the Bureau of Statistics, the Bankers Bank, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria, make their releases. But as of today, the available number is showing that yes, revenue has grown within the reality of devaluation policy, which of course has aided revenue growth. And also there is a lot of energy on the part of FRS, which have indeed helped in boosting revenue. And one would agree that truly FRS has really muscled up in terms of revenue collection. And if you remember that the president also mentioned in that video you showed that his administration makes these targets revenue from non-revenue, non-oil. So to my mind, we need to look at what we budgeted, what we plan to borrow for 2025. And if the president said we have met it, I'm wondering the proposal before the Senate, if that is still obtainable. Because just recently, the Senate looked at a borrowing proposal brought in by the executive, that's Mr. President, for 2025. So if we have met our revenue target and we're around August, because we are just starting September, the good news will be that less than three quarters, because September is the end of the third quarter. So we still have a whole quarter clearance, which means we might increase our revenue target by over 25%, nearly 30%, which would be a good thing if we are able to do that. But as economists, what is important to us is to now see this number reflect. But as I speak to you today, we have heard, that the word of president, any nation, is a very powerful word, and presidents generally don't speak carelessly. So I want to take this as one of those words that are really indeed very powerful. But as a researcher, we would need to wait until the numbers are made official. Again, the atmosphere with which the president said this was speaking with politicians. I understand that those were members of CPC. CPC is one of the political party that amalgamated or that came together to form the current APC. And you know that vice president before now was a member of CPC. In fact, the immediate past president was the leader of CPC. So we understand that this is a political meeting. And as economists, it's important for us to look critically at the numbers before we assume whether it is true or otherwise.
He had said that they are no longer borrowing in local banks. Perhaps that provides a bit of context, but we know that borrowing profile has been submitted to the National Assembly. I think it came to about 20 or 20-something billion.
The truth is that we're actually borrowing. Anytime central bank raises bills and bonds, they are borrowing. Yeah. So when you see the central bank raise bill and bond, and banks are buying this bill and bond directly. But you see, I'm now going technical. You understand? In order not to discredit the word of the president, the number one citizen of Nigeria, it's also good to provide context to it. So the president may be talking about maybe the federal government going to the bank, commercial bank, this time to borrow money. Of course, the government has its own bank, which is the central bank, which can also lend against expected inflow into the government. But state government before now will naturally run to those commercial banks to borrow money. Now, but the president might have also hinted that we might be borrowing, but we are not borrowing locally, because he said we are not borrowing from local banks. And if you look at what was read at the floor of Senate, they were majorly foreign loans, even though I had warned before now that we should be wary of foreign loans. My second master's degree which was, of course, MPhil in economics. That particular year, the research I did was on Nigeria, and I felt the impact of debt on the GDP, and I linked that to poverty, I linked that to increase in taxes, and so on and so forth. And my revelation was shocking to me, and those that I made that presentation to, which revealed that the burden we have in Nigeria, the external borrowing poses about 80% of burden on the economy. So I'm hoping that, yes, we have had a milestone growth and it should be celebrated, but we should get to a point where we can have a budget beyond budget deficit. Budget surplus is also a concept in economics. We can get to that point where we have a surplus in our budget. So to say that we are not borrowing at all, we mean that central bank will not sell bills, central bank will not sell bonds. It also means that we will not see foreign loan coming to Nigeria. Now, there is provision for borrowing the budget. But when it comes to revenue target, which is also huge, President said we have met it. Honestly, I am super duper happy that we have met that. And I'm hoping that that should help reduce what we should be borrowing in the coming period. Perhaps that review will come up. But with what the president has said, honestly, most of us are eager to see the document and also push this to the farthest point so that people will know that, yes, Nigeria revenue has stood there. Because I still read foreign media and I saw what the foreign media is saying, that in spite of the reform Nigeria made, revenue is still generally low. Some of them still believe that Naira is overvalued, which of course I'm against. Some of them have looked at inflation numbers, saying that inflation is still very food inflation is also high, poverty level is also really high. No, this is what the foreign media is saying about Nigeria. Now, if the president has new information that some of us don't have, because when we are confronted as citizens citizens of Nigeria, questions should be asked from us. Some of them may not want to talk to people in government.
All
They
right.
want to talk to independent economists, and we should be able to answer them in favor of Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Elijah, I'm happy you've made that point about securitized and non-securitized, because a lot of people don't realize that T-bills and bonds are also a form of borrowing, just that it's properly structured, that nobody is going to owe you. Perhaps he's talking about those direct borrowings that we're used to. So our budget side that is 37 billion, about 37 billion as a federal government, and I know that our debt is inching closer to almost 100 billion, because we're moving around 140 150 trillion in terms of all of that. So the issue of borrowing and non-borrowing is quite critical. But when we get the actual numbers as will be published, we'll be able to interrogate. But where I'm going to with all of this is, it looks to me like the president is great at optimization. The query now has to be with productivity. Optimization in terms of the taxes, we see what is happening with the customs and all of that. Even we have a debate about that as well, because sometimes people feel that customs should not be just a revenue driver, accruing driver, in the sense that they should also be promoters of trade because of the monies people pay as duties at the port. So let's talk about the disparity between growth and proper development, which is always the big disconnect in Africa. So using Nigeria as a case study. So for instance, our exchange rate is stable. Our interest rate is high. So people that do carry trading is a destination naturally for anybody who wants to invest here. That stability in itself will bring those investors who will see high interest numbers. We saw what's happening with the US. We're expecting that the Feds perhaps may be going dovish, given the signal they showed us at FMOC. We've seen the numbers as far as the PMI is concerned, still contracting. So that looks like bad days ahead for the dollar, strong days for the naira. The argument of whether our dollar and our naira is undervalued or overvalued is a different kettle of fish. But my question is, putting all of these metrics together, how come sometimes we do good with growth, but development is always a problem?
I think it's important to look at the two concepts. They are concepts in economics, and generally economists use GDP among other parameters to measure growth. But when we look at changes or improvements in the overall well-being and improvement in the environment as part of the parameter to measure development, for Nigeria, what we have seen is that most of the time, administrations prefer to pursue growth and telling Nigeria we have grown by 7%, 8%, or by 2%, as the case may be. It's worse off when you are not able to grow at all. But it's the best when you are developing, and that is where the word developing nation, developed nation, underdeveloped nation, that is where they came from. So when you look at what we are currently going through, Nigeria is in the phase of stability. And it's important to explain the concept of stability to many viewers. Now, you can be stable at different lines. If you have a line, a straight line, either it is horizontal or vertical, if you plot those two graphs and you are a bit above the vertical line, which means the costs on that line is a bit lower. But when you push up, the cost is higher. Now, if once the line is straight, once for I don't want to use technical language, if the line is not zigzag in a way, it's not up and down like that, then you say you have a stable line. So if your price before was 500, it's stable. But when it start going to 600, 800, 300, going up like that, then you are not having a stable price line. But if it now goes up or cost line to about 1,800, 1,900, then it's stable. Even if it's stable at 2,000, it's permanent. The variation is not much. We say you have stability. So stability is important first for people to plan, for investors to have confidence. The question is, when stability comes at a much lower price, then it will not breed poverty. The number of people that that will be left out of stability will not be much. Because between when the exchange rate was about 400, 500 to now that it's about 1,500, you see that variation of 1,000 contains people, contains income, contains businesses, because people might not be able to reach the new reality. Why? globally. Poverty is measured with people who live less than $2.15. $2.15 is the same. Naira is what varied. Naira has now become 1,500. To be charitable, 1,500, let's say $2, that will give you 3,000 naira. 3,000 naira times 30, and ignore the 15 cents on top. 3,000 naira times 30 will give you 90,000 naira. Minimum wage is 70,000 naira. You can plot the gap. It's below the poverty line. And that is why when I was privileged to provide advisory on your platform, reputable platform, Channels Television, and other platforms in Nigeria, and also speak one-on-one with some of the representatives of labor, I told them that do not settle for less than $100, because I was privileged to be among the foremost to predict what exchange rate will be from I think that I said from March 2024 to date. I told them it's going to be 1,500. You need to plan your future at 100,000 naira. But the labor leader felt 70,000 is more than triple or double of 30,000 naira. It's more than double of 30,000 naira. So, but it's not enough to the labor leader. You must understand time. You must understand trend. You must understand how it will affect you. Why? For the love of country and the love of your members, so that when the policies are coming, you will start feeling it will not bite harder on the people. So people talk of, oh, the possibility of inflation. Well, the inflation is here, even though we have adjusted methodology and we're seeing it reduce by line. So not to just to conclude very briefly. So you will start seeing some possibility of growth. If they're able to force down inflation, which we are trying to do now, and we are working on GDP number improving. If GDP does not improve and inflation comes down and it's the same you're able to do, it will still have the implication on your real GDP. It will improve of some sort. But how do we put all of these to make sure we are now developed? I will tell you. South Korea did it. Japan did it. Germany have done it. China is doing it. India is on this path. The same Brazil is also on this path. What is it? Manufacturing, production, processing. So all of these gains that we have made, this excess revenue.
All right, Dr. Alaje, let me come in here so that I can use the opportunity to have you to touch on many issues. You know, in Section 16 of the Constitution, it has a nuance. I think in Section 16, 2B and C, it talked about equity. Let me use a careful word now. More like don't plan your economy. They call it principle of state policy, where you plan your economy in such a way that it's not in the hands of a few people or in the hands of a few or some part of the country. And recently, the presidency and some elements in the north have been going at each other as far as the distribution of projects, which comes to the issue of what I would consider like the politics of equity and economics, if you will, because some people are saying, oh, Lagos is getting better piece of the pie than every other part of the country. Or the federal government came out and said, look, let's look at road distribution. The Northwest has, but they didn't give us a Lagos number. Some people are defending us, okay, Lagos being the economic nerve center, 3 seaport, 2 international airport, all the banks are here and all of that. So this back and forth, how do we reconcile? Because this is where economics meets politics and they never agree. So yeah, my screen here shows the defense of the federal government. If my producer can show it to you. As far as the distribution of project is concerned. How do we find a meeting point such that it doesn't look like the federal government is looking at one direction and leaving the other direction? In like 3 minutes.
It would be unfair to speak against what is going on in Lagos. The truth is that if you really want to have a sporadic growth, I have always said that you need to practice what we call agglomerative economics. We cannot have a state grow overnight like Lagos State. Capitalize on your benefits. Lagos is growing sporadically and is a star in the Southwest region. What Kano, Kaduna are in the Northwest region. So when we bring politics to economies, the taste will be very bitter, because instead of putting one where you can have 4, that where you can grow it by ×4, you will take one and take it to where you grow by just 1.1. At the end of the day, it's the same one. And this is one of the reasons why we have found ourselves where we are. We need to grow from the core, where you have labor competence, environmental friendly, you have resources maximized. That is how countries grow. Countries always have areas where they know that with little input they will go without neglecting other parts, which may now be in the west, in the east, in the middle, anywhere it may be in the north of a certain country. So for me, when people say that more revenue has gone to Lagos State, I don't have the information. I cannot speak to it. But I am saying that whosoever is going to implement project for us, wherever part of the country they come from, once they are competent, I think we need to put competent first in our polity and know that these people are competent, they can do it, whether they are from the north, whether they are Muslims or Christian, the organization that can help us promote it. And let me give you an instance. I'm in the FCT. The new minister with his team are doing fantastic job. You know, it belongs to the presidency. But 9 out of 10 times I've spoken about the work I've seen in Abuja. Honestly, it is easier for me to speak to investors around the world that come to Nigeria, come to Abuja, go to Lagos. And you should not be surprised that this region have attracted more foreign direct investment in the last period. So you wonder, where are other investments? Where have they gone to? So for me, we cannot develop Nigeria with tapping our fingers. It has to be orchestrated. It has to be planned from the best to the worst, growing from worst also to meet the best. So, but saying that we have to practice a portion of equity, everything should be equal, it's important. Equality is different from equity. To want it to be the same, no state has the same population. No state has the same size of land. Those states also are in the same level of development. And you see, to end this, which is my argument, and this is my advice to President Tinubu. Anytime I have opportunity to advise him, I say, please let Nigeria go to regional system of government. Let one region not develop above other. We have had now Northwest Development Zone, Southeast, South, North, Southwest.
Yes,
have now been signed into law. Let's give power to this region so that all regions can grow. Nobody will complain that, oh, you favor Sokoto above Zamfara. When President Buhari was in office, I heard the same complaint. People wanted me to speak against President Buhari because he's from the north. But I said, no, who is competent should do it. But the best way is go regional. The headache of you are neglecting side A against side B will no longer be there.
Dr. Alaje, you know you're not a politician. When it comes to the issue of restructuring, it's a hot button topic that literally, as brave as they say the president is trying to be smart around it because it's a very, very contentious issue. Perhaps one day we're going to have maybe a town hall about the economics of equity and equality at the end of the day. But we must thank you for bringing your professional perspective. Dr. Paul Alaje is the chief economist at SPM Professionals. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics. Bye-bye.